Welcome back to Occult Symbolism and Pop Culture. I'm your host, Isaac Weishaupt. Today we wrap up a two-part deep dive on the esoteric history of the Hoover Dam. In part one, we talked about the architect, Oscar Hansen, and his Illuminati confirmedness about alien obsession. And we talked about the symbolism that you see in these films, like Transformers and Westworld, the show, and how they depicted alien technology hidden within the Hoover Dam. We talked about, the boring parts of the Hoover Dam, what it is. It gives power to 6 states. Who cares? No one cares. We're here to talk about the occult. And today we're going deep into the statues at Hoover Dam and how they are tied to Luciferian worship of the intellect. And on the surface, the worship of science and the intellect of man sounds very benign. But if you are from a certain spiritual worldview, particularly Christianity, you already know the script because they gave it to you. They told you exactly what was going to happen many times over in a book called the Bible. The Bible, that is the book for me. They told you in the Tower of Babel. Babel, as some say. I was watching a Smithsonian documentary on Paramount Plus, and they pronounce it Babel, Tower of Babel. But you know the story. Man worshiping the intellect tries to reach the level of God, and God smites man. So let's talk about the occult doctrine baked into this esoteric eighth wonder of the world, the Hoover Dam. If you haven't listened to part 1, I don't know what you're doing. Go back and listen to part 1. I'll put the link in the show notes. What's wrong with you? And while you're doing it, you better sign up for the ad-free experience of the show. It's the only way to support the show now. It's the only way to do it. You go to patreon.com/IlluminatiWatcher. You go ad-free, unlock 160 bonus episodes. Or you can just go to Apple Podcast app, double click and sign up. Or hit the button. I don't know, what do you call it? There's no button on a iPhone anymore. Takes 2 seconds and you're in. All right. That was Grifter Alley. Let's talk about the statue, because these are the most interesting elements of the Hoover Dam. What do they mean? Well, they symbolize to possibly alien visitors that mankind built the dam. All right. Let's look at the mundane. And in the first part, we talked about the mundane messaging. We talked about 9/11 and the Kabbalistic tree of life. And we talked about the mundane messaging. They said, it's the new normal, the day everything changed. But then there's this occult, esoteric, spiritual realm with which these occult magicians are creating new realities. So let's look at the mundane explanation according to usbr.gov. A monument, they're talking about the Hoover Dam, a monument to collective genius exerting itself in community efforts around a common need or ideal. That's what they call the Hoover Dam. And he compared the dam to such works as the Great Pyramids of Egypt. And then I think we're talking about let me clarify. We're talking about the architect, Oscar Hansen, who we talked about at the ramp up of part 1. All right. We're still talking about him. He compares the dam to the Great Pyramids of Egypt and said that when viewing these man-made structures, the viewer often asks of their builders, what manner of men were these? Right? Because it's about the ego. It's about man trying to flex on future generations. And I get it. There's an idea that man wants to leave behind something. Sorry, I had an ice cube there, everybody. Man wants to leave behind something for the future, to know, to leave an imprint. Here's the thing, though. On God's experience for us, I would argue that's not the intention. And this is subjective. This is just my personal take. And I get it. I am interested in leaving I wrote 9 books. I'm interested in leaving them behind. But who cares? Why? Does any of that matter? Would I want to trade in the time it takes to write a book? Because everything's a battle for your time and resources. Do I want to take the time away from my family, from my wife, from my dogs, who have a very limited time on this earth, to devote to something that will be around after I leave? If you don't believe in the idea of going to heaven when you die, maybe you do. But in all honesty, if you break it down, none of it matters. Like Eminem said, none of this shit's going to mean shit where we're going. In the prophetic words of Eminem. Okay, so they're talking on that usbr.gov website still. The sculptor, according to Hansen, tries to answer this question objectively by interpreting man to other men in the terms of the man himself in each of these monuments. Period. In each of these monuments can be read the characteristics of these men, and on a larger scale, the community of which they are part. Thus, mankind itself is the subject of the sculptures at Hoover Dam. So, what do the sculptures mean? It represents mankind. Okay. To impress future generations, aliens, right? Because we already know Oscar Hansen was into aliens from part 1. Where did I read that? Let me back up in my notes here. Oscar's fascinating but never told life story includes archaeological expeditions, world famous artists, connections to 9 U.S. presidents, alien theories, Holy Grail quest, all these things. Okay, let's talk about the specific statues. There are 2 giant winged figures of the Republic. If you've ever seen G.I. Joe the movie, the cartoon movie, the good one, from the 80s, with Globulus and the Nemesis Enforcer, kind of looks like the Nemesis Enforcer. There are these 2 massive winged figures. These wings are 30 feet high. That's higher than most houses. And what do they symbolize? Well, let's take a look right from the source. They symbolize the immutable calm of intellectual resolution and the enormous power of trained physical strength, equally enthroned in placid triumph of scientific accomplishment. So the hot takes out of there represents the intellect and science. It says it right there, the immutable calm of intellectual resolution. And the intellect is always a reference to the third eye. Well, not always. It could be a reference to the third eye, the intellect. And a lot of times these Luciferian occultists who believe that the serpent in the Garden of Eden was teaching, wanted to open the eyes of Adam and Eve. It's referring to the third eye. It wanted to give man intellect. And of course, science is the demonstration of such intellect. Let me keep reading here. The building of Hoover Dam belongs to the sagas of the daring. The winged bronzes which guard the flag, therefore, wear the look of eagles. To them also was given the vital upward thrust of an aspirational gesture to symbolize the readiness for defense of our institutions and keeping of our spiritual eagles ever ready to be on the wing. Okay, so they're talking a lot about eagles. That's the hot take out of there. So the eagles is, should we talk about it now? Yes, I guess so. The eagles, they represent intellect, science, and spirituality. And all this, of course, Luciferian ideas represented by these statues. Intellect and science is the doctrine of the Luciferians taken from Prometheus. All right. Prometheus stole the fire from Zeus to give to men. He was giving man the tickets to his own salvation, supposedly, to rise above the gods. And when you research the eagle in Manly P. Hall's books, he talks a lot about how basically in the So Francis Bacon, Manly P. Hall, these guys talked a lot about how America was the new Atlantis. And the symbol for the eagle is actually a symbol for the phoenix, because this is the new world, right? And they wanted the new Atlantis was supposed to be this celebration of science, of the greatest technologies. So then we got the black cubes, right? There's actually black cubes at the Hoover Dam. And this is where you can find these winged figures of the Republic. They're posted up on black cubes. And like we talked about in part 1, the cube is representative of the material realm, going back to Platonic solids. And in Freemasonry, the worshipful master stands on the square. When they tell a Freemason they're not on their square, that means they're off their path of the great work. And the black cube particularly represents the worship of Saturn. Now, is it a coincidence that in Transformers, the 2007 movie with the Allspark is actually a cube put into the Hoover Dam? Alien technology, right? The technology, the Promethean fire, the wisdom handed to man, was symbolized as the Allspark. So at the Hoover Dam, we have angels standing on black cubes, all very connected to me. So in a way, the Hoover Dam is representing the repository of the Promethean flame. Man using science, man using his intellect. I think you guys get the point. And oh, by the way, the Hoover Dam is located inside of the Black Canyon. All right. So the cubes that the fallen angels are sitting on top of are inside the Black Canyon, which again, I told you I was obsessed with Twin Peaks last time. Makes me think of the Black Lodge. And in the first part of the Hoover Dam, we talked about the Daoth, the dark side of the Kabbalistic tree of life. You could argue this is also the Mob Zone, also tied into Twin Peaks. And so anyways, the Black Canyon is where all this is located. All right, let's take a look at Prometheus, because I know maybe not everybody's very familiar with it. I had to learn a lot about Prometheus as well, researching all this occult stuff. If you go to a book from Dr. Stephen Flowers called Lords of the Left-Hand Path, great resource, all right? If you want to learn all about all these esoteric, occult, left-hand path Luciferians, that's a good book. Everyone always asks me what books to read. That's one of the staples, all right? I'm going to read you right from it. I'll save you some time. The myth of Prometheus is one that shows the spiritual or intellectual tutelage of a figure who provides humanity with its divine aspect, its intellect, and who is therefore the true father of its spirit. Prometheus promotes the individuation of mankind from the gods and sets it as a species on its heroic quest to develop its own sense of divine power. As long as humanity was closely linked to the gods, it could not evolve in accordance with its own mysterious quest. So there is a higher spiritual calling these occultists believe in. They call it the Great Work. It's evolving mankind to become something better. Some say transhumanism. But it's about man becoming God through application of sciences. And if you know the history of science, you can't talk about it without talking about the occultist and alchemy, right? And in Helena Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine, which also we talked about The Wizard of Oz in 4 different episodes last month. In The Secret Doctrine, she said that Prometheus, or Lucifer, same person, represents the intellect infused into humanity, so that terrestrial man can be made divine. Actually, that's actually a quote from Lords of the Left-Hand Path. But when you check The Secret Doctrine, I had a PDF version of it that I couldn't actually find that verbatim phrase, but I mean, I trust Dr. Stephen Flowers, right? It's possible he's got a different version of the text, or maybe he paraphrased it a bit. But anyway, but it would make sense that it's in the Secret Doctrine. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. That's her vibe, right? No cap. For real, that's her vibe. I just want to point that out in case there's some high-level intellect out there listening who's, an occult nerd. Oh, wow, that's not factually true. He didn't say that. I'm reading from Lords of the Left-Hand Path. All right, take it up with Dr. Stephen Flowers. Now, let's talk about the intellect, because that's the crux of this whole argument. I'm saying is that the statues are representative of the worship of intellect. They always know how to hide this stuff in plain sight, or we're just crazy conspiracy people and we think we see stuff everywhere. That's an option too. I'm open to hearing both. Let's go back to Lords of the Left-Hand Path, because this guy's way smarter on this stuff than me. That's why I'm reading from the book. There are two major criteria for being considered a true lord or lady of the left-hand path. Those are like witchcraft terms, by the way, lord and lady. So there's two major criteria to be considered part of the left-hand path: deification of the self and antinomianism. The first of these is complex. The system of thought proposed by the magician or philosopher must be one that promotes individual self-deification, preferably based on an initiatory magical scheme. This first criterion will be seen to have four distinct elements. Now, before we do the elements, this is why we're always picking on the magicians, the occultists. This is why in part 1, when we talk about in Kabbalah, the practitioner ascends the Kabbalistic tree of life. They follow practices of Western esotericism, hermeticism, magic, Kabbalism, all that stuff. Here's the four elements. Self-deification, the attainment of an enlightened or awakened, independently existing intellect and its relative immortality. So man becoming God. That's, again, always comes back to that. Always does. Number 2, individualism. The enlightened intellect is that of a given individual, not a collective body. Okay? And that's what some people say left-hand path or antinomianism is separation from the stream of consciousness of God, whereas, Christian, Muslim, the Abrahamic faiths are trying to get into the stream of God, God's consciousness. Okay, number 3, initiation. The enlightenment and strength of essence necessary for the desired state of evolution of self are attained by means of stages created by the will of the magician, not because he or she was divine to begin with. So they use magic. That's what will, right? The magic is the conformity of the will. I'm butchering that. Aleister Crowley defined it as such. What is it? The science and the nature of causing change in conformity with the will. Boom. There you go. You can't take me down. You can't beat me. It's in there. Last one, 4, magic. On the nose, right? The practitioners of the left-hand path see themselves as using their own wills in a rationally intuited system or spiritual technology designed to cause the universe around them to conform to their self-willed patterns. Okay. So as you can tell, these texts about the occult are not easy to read. What he's saying is that the intellect plays a role here. If you want to be a left-hand pather, it has to be you have to seek deification to become God, and you have to be open to concepts and theories and practices outside of the norm, meaning antinomianism. Because they consider left-hand path the antinomian path, whereas the right-hand path is more like your major religions, basically. What about the spiritual eagles? That's again, we talked about eagles symbolizing the phoenix, and the occult sciences claim that, and like alchemy, they claim that the final stage of enlightenment of the intellect, again, refining the intellect, man becoming God, is the phoenix. It's the evolved form of man. Now, should we have doubts? Because we're still talking about the statues here, folks. I know. Should we have doubts on the occult symbolism of these statues? Here's what Oscar... I keep forgetting his damn last name. Oscar the Grouch, we'll call him. I don't know. The guy, the designer of these statues, the architect. Oscar the Grouch said, "Man has always sought to express and preserve the magnitude of his exploits in symbols." Boom, major key alert, everybody. Major key alert. The written words are symbols arranged so as to preserve in objectified form the thought of man, and to record his variant states, both mental and physical. All other arts are similar as to their symbolic significance. They take their place among the category of human endeavor simply as the interpreter of life to itself. They serve as an outer object typifying the inner process. They form the connecting link between the spiritual and the material world. They are the shadows cast by the realities of the soul. Man, let that sink in. The connecting link is the symbols are the connecting link between the spiritual and the material realm. And we talked about symbols many times over the years. Carl Jung was obsessed with these things, right? Said symbols gave meaning to the life of man. We know that there's a lot of power, and a lot of these, Edward Bernays corporate advertisement type outfits, they understand that symbols mean a lot too. That's why they pay millions of dollars for a few seconds of ad time during the Super Bowl. So now, in a similar kind of related note, we are talking about the Hoover Dam. I got this question from my man Matt over on Patreon forever ago, but your boy takes notes. Like I said, last summer is when I first started digging into the Hoover Dam. Right? Slow, methodical, and steady. That's what I do. All right. Matt asked me, I'm going to read you what Matt said. "Hey, total nerd question here." Oh, no, don't say that, Matt. "I went down a rabbit hole and ended up reading about Herbert Hoover's National Historic Site in West Branch, Iowa. At this historic site, there is the grave site of Herbert Hoover and his wife, and also a statue of Isis, veiled, chiseled by a Belgian artist named August Puttermans, and presented to the U.S. on behalf of the Belgian government as a thank you for Hoover's help during the war. Do you have the faintest idea why they would gift a statue of Isis veiled? It just seems like a really obscure esoteric thing to be sitting on the property." And right you are, Matt. And again, we're talking about the Hoover Dam, conceptualized by Herbert Hoover. So is it relevant? Yes, I think so. Now, we always want to look at the mundane version of reality. And the National Park Service website claims this about that statue. It says, "Isis wears a veil, a symbol of the mysteries of life. Her right hand carries the torch of life. Its three flames represent the past, present, and future. Her left hand holds the key of life. An ancient Egyptian goddess and an American president are an unlikely pairing." Oh, contraire, mon frère. I think it's a very likely pairing. If you look around at Washington, D.C., the, what do you call it? The headquarters of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry, every presidential inauguration, they do that ritual, the Osiris Rising ritual. I'd say the two are very connected, all right? But it provides a powerful visual link between Hoover's childhood and his life's dedication to the welfare of others. Well, isn't that cute? Now, let's cut through all that BS. Let me tell you what's really going on. We know that Isis is highly symbolic and important to the Mystery Babylon religion, as per the late, great Mr. Bill Cooper. Now, we talked about this in Wizard of Oz Part 2, where we walked through the entire film. And what we're referencing here is the Osirian mysteries, the Babylon mystery religion that allegedly all these Illuminati occultists are obsessed with. And it goes back to Plutarch. And Plutarch reveals, he says to us that Isis actually means knowledge. So there you go. Isis is the intellect seen all over the Hoover Dam and sitting at his, what's that thing called? The National Historic Site in Iowa. But again, very innocuous. A lot of people would, most people would just see this and think nothing of it. Like, oh yeah, they think men are smart. Okay, science sounds good, buddy. Intellect, got it. Let's be smart. But you got to understand the mystery religion. They conceal the truth in symbol and statues and stuff, right? Now, Bill Cooper claimed that Osiris and Isis, they're not references to real people or necessarily the Egyptian mythology. They're actually symbols used as a method to conceal this esoteric wisdom through the ages. And what does it symbolize? It symbolizes the great work and a one-world government. That's what Cooper was always talking about. Maybe that's why he ended up getting shot by the FBI. I don't know. Isis symbolizes the Atlantis Mystery School. Again, we're talking about that new Atlantis a second ago, right? It's representative of the church for the Mystery School. And when you look at the Mystery Babylon religion, and again, Bill Cooper talked about it. There's, I think, 30-some episodes you can listen to. You dig around, Google it, you can find it. Maybe 30 to 60 minutes each. It's not an insignificant amount of research, but it's very good. But he'll tell you that Osiris symbolizes the doctrine, Isis symbolizes the church, and the body of all initiates, the congregation, if you will, the Great Mother. And we talked about this in Wizard of Oz because you've got opposing polarities, right? You got Osiris, which is your solar powers, your masculine, your phallus, your pole, the pole of philosophy. Then you got Isis, which is your lunar, feminine, the receiver, right? The initiates are these body of initiates seeking the lost word. They are the Isis. What's the lost word? Well, in terms of the Egyptian mythology story, they're looking for the penis of Osiris. Because you remember in the storyline, in the mythology storyline, Set come along and chopped Osiris up into 13 pieces. And Isis was going around picking them all up. She's like, damn, where's that penis? I can't find the penis. I only found 12. And that was the most important part. So she took a gold obelisk and she affixed it to his crotch. It was like, whatever, here you go. And then she got on that bad boy and made things happen. And she gave birth, the Immaculate Conception of Horus. But it's all allegory. It's symbolism. What else do we got? The star chart. We're going to talk about the star chart. And there's a giant star chart at the Hoover Dam. And it's all about the precession of equinoxes and these 26,000-year cycles. A 26,000-year cycle in astrology is called the Great Year. All caps, right? The Great Year. And it's what it takes for the Earth to travel through all 12 signs of the zodiac. And there's another parallel a lot of the zeitgeist types will talk about is, Set chopped up Osiris into 13 pieces and only 12 were found. And you got the 12 disciples of Jesus. Then you got the 12 signs of the zodiac. They try to say, oh, the story of Jesus Christ is actually the story of astrological movements. Now, every 2,100 years, we enter a new age of the zodiac, right? And to some people, the age of Aquarius is either already here or it's coming very soon. Right? So 2,100 times 12, what do you get? Let's do math real quick. 24,000 25,000. Yeah, what? Oh, man. Man, doing math on the spot is tough. You got close to 26, but not quite. So it's about 26,000 years. So, anyways, we came from the age of Pisces, or we're still barely in. And I don't get into astrology much. It's not really my thing. But Wikipedia, they get into it. They said that Aquarius starts in the year 2150. So, but some people will say we're already there. So I don't know. But if you go to a shady website, pacalahau.wordpress.com, they have an article on this exact subject about the star charts and Oscar the Grouch and everything, right? And it says, when in the course of time, the composition of our world and those other worlds in space shall be more fully known, record it here for future men to see, and having seen, to speculate, investigate, and carry on the search. So in the floor of this monument is basically a giant star chart, a celestial map, if you will. And it was dedicated on September 30th, 1935, just a couple weeks after the dam started making electricity. It shows the solar system and the pole star. Is that related to the polar philosophy of Osiris? I don't know. I don't think so. But it shows it for the next 14,000 years so that future generations will be able to determine when this dam was built based upon the movement of the stars. That's pretty smart, right? Pretty slick. And it shows the creation date based on this 25,772 year actual precession of the Earth. And it shows the North Stars, like Thuban? Thuban? I don't know if I pronounced that right. Translated as the head of the serpent. Now, and it's going to bug me here, so let me do the math here, because they're saying 25,772, but if you do 2,100 times 24, you're looking at 25,200. So not quite the same, but I think they're all in the ballpark there. Anyway, they show nerding out with the math, but it's the universal language, right? Thuban. And they're saying that Thuban, which translates as the head of the serpent, was the North Star when the Egyptians built the Great Pyramids, which we already talked about. Oscar the Grouch talking about how he was obsessed with the Egyptian pyramids. Remember that? So basically, the pyramids were built with you know how there's these two chambers, the observation passages in the Great Pyramid of Giza? Well, the one was observing Thuban that night. Apparently. At night, at the time it was built. Don't ask me how they know. Go to the pacalahau.wordpress. I don't know. So the Earth, it wobbles, right? And because the idea is that the North Star we view actually rotates and changes over time. And currently the North Star is in Polaris. In 12,000 years, it will be in Vega. And these are all represented on the star chart. Because like I said, they'll have 14,000 years that this will be applicable. And some folks, like your Doomsday Mayan Catastrophe 2012 folks and your Ancient Alien folks, they all said that December 21st, 2012 was the beginning of the next age. But as you can see, there's a 100, 200 year sort of fluff here as to when we get into the age of Aquarius and how many years is in a precession and all that. Now, near the star chart is a compass framed by zodiac signs. Now, the compass, of course, highly symbolic of Freemasonry, which FDR was a Freemason when this thing was built. But what's important here, let's zoom out. What's important here is the astrology. This is the first of the occult arts. It came from the Babylonian stargazers. And the alchemists believed in all this stuff, right? And they used it to help decipher their art. And they say that the 12 zodiac signs are related to some kind of struggle between humanity's higher and lower natures, like the Sagittarius Centaur or the sexual drives of Scorpio versus the virgins of Virgo. And you could argue that all of this is about sex magic, right? I did 2 big shows on sex magic, I don't know, 6 to 12 months ago. And that's what it's all about. And that's what we're going to revisit one glorious day when I complete a Twin Peaks analysis, because that's what we're watching. That's what we're watching. All right, we got a couple more little tiny ones, and then we're going to wrap it up. The flagpole, which is at the center of the celestial map. Listen to what it says, because it's very curious. It is fitting that the flag of our country should fly here in honor of those men who, inspired by a vision of lonely lands made fruitful, conceived this great work, and those others whose genius and labor made that vision a reality. You already know, the great work is a term in Freemasonry, and it's a term for alchemy and all these occult arts, for man finding the path to self-deification or immortality. It's kind of how it goes. And interestingly enough, Harry Truman, the 33rd president, and also 33rd degree Freemason, was actually the one who renamed the Hoover Dam. Because remember, FDR, he was a hater. He was like, look, Herbert Hoover, I know you made this whole dam, but I'm the boss now, and we're calling it the Boulder Dam, because F you and the clique you claim. Well, then Harry Truman would later come back and say, no, we're naming it the Hoover Dam. And Harry, again, I mean, I don't know how many Twin Peaks teasers I can drop on you between now and the day that I will finish it, which will be never. I mean, I probably am not going to get this done until next year. But the sheriff, his name is Harry Truman. And I would argue that that's related to all this. Harry Truman, the 33rd president and the 33rd degree Freemason. All right, moving on. There was men that died there, 96 men to be exact. Giggity giggity. Their names are carved into the monument. And this isn't very fun or occulty, but interesting. I guess guys way back then, they would jackhammer rocks hundreds of feet in the air, and they would be blowing them up with demolition, and they would fall to their death. It was so dangerous, they had a place called Safety Island where the workers would find refuge. They were on their lunch break, and I come on, okay, go to Safety Island so you can eat your little sandwich, and you don't have to worry about rocks falling on your head and crushing you, because that's what they were dealing with. And Wikipedia claims 112 actually died. 96 was during the actual construction. Anyway, fun morbid facts. Then they've got these bas reliefs on the elevator towers. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. BAS. Don't correct me. I don't care. Small carved stones that show the purpose of the dam. You know, it's like flood control, navigation, irrigation, water storage, power, so on. That's the Nevada Tower. The Arizona Tower is dedicated to Native American tribes. But again, we have this idea of twin towers. Right? In the first part, we talked about 9/11 and the twin towers. The two became one. The Boaz and Yakin. I didn't see anything else that sort of confirmed that these were Boaz, Yakin, but hey, let's throw it out there. Why not? The twin pillars represent the entrance to a mystical place, which you got to argue that maybe that's some of this Hoover Dam stuff going on. All right. There's also, this is a pretty good one. There's a plaque that says, nothing without the deity. Well, isn't that interesting? And it's in Latin. The word is nil sine numine. And they show it, and you're not going to believe this, with an all-seeing eye in a triangle surrounded by the rays of the sun. It doesn't get any more esoteric than that. This is, and let me sum all that up to you, right? The all-seeing eye is the intellect, right? The pineal gland, the wisdom. And the rays of the sun represent the blazing star of Freemasonry, which is Sirius, the phallus power of the sun. And above all that, they have a fasci, if you can believe that. Bundled sticks with an axe. Symbolic of fascism. It's all right there in that one. There's a couple more, though. Hang on. We're not letting you go yet. At the state line between Arizona and Nevada, there's a plaque, and it shows the two states that the dam straddles, right? Because it's pretty big. But it also has spirals on it. What do those spirals symbolize? They symbolize the evolution of man, or the rebirth of man. Again, same message of the great work over and over. It also says US 93. 93 is the number of Thelema in Aleister Crowley's religion that the alien AWAS dictated to him. And of course, he was a Freemason and all OTO magician and all those things. Now, curiously enough, US 93 is the highway you get if you drive from Las Vegas to Rachel, Nevada, to Area 51. Back in 2019, me and Jimmy the Jackhammer made a whole video. I don't know where you can find it. I don't know if you know, YouTube keeps threatening me. I started a new YouTube channel. They sent me, they took down one of my videos because Nick Hint inappropriately, I show here, mentioned something about a you-know-what. A you-know-what is a thing that you-know-who is using to try to stop the thing from 2020 that will never go away. And he mentioned it. He didn't even mention anything bad about it. And they took the video down. They flagged me and they sent me a warning. And they're like, one more and we're shutting you down. I was like, oh, my God. That plays into my whole, I think I'm just done. I think I'm just done with social media. I'm done because I also got TikTok warnings. I'm done with YouTube, I think. Well, I say that. I always say that. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll do another video. I'm just over it. You know what I mean? I'm over all this constant censorship. Anyway, I did a video. It's out somewhere. Might be on my YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's on my Rockfin. If I get around to it, I'll find a link, put it in the show notes. It's pretty fun. It's a fun video. All right, I'm going to put a link. I just made a note. All right. Now, the bridge that connects the two states is the Mike O'Callahan Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge. Fun fact, Pat Tillman is the famous football player that left the NFL to go join the Army Green Berets. He wasn't a pogue. That's a badass dude right there, right? That's some like top shelf manliness, you know? You leave the NFL and all the money and fame to go do some more badass stuff and join the Green Berets? Are you kidding me? And his brother Kevin Tillman, who often doesn't get brought up, also a hero, he left baseball. He was playing baseball to join up. And Pat Tillman infamously got the friendly, they call it, well, I'll keep it PG. They call it get friendly effed. Friendly fire, right? And infamously, old Donald Rumsfeld and George Bush being real scumbags, they tried to spin it. I mean, he was already a hero, right? Regardless. But they couldn't leave it at that. They had to try to spin it into this big war hero story. Like, oh, he was fighting the Taliban and he jumped on a grenade or whatever they said. But his own family, who's the most stand-up people, come out and they're like, no, F that. That's not how it happened. These guys are, okay, so the Tillmans are patriots, right? It doesn't get any more patriotic than what they did. And even they were like, dude, don't do that in his name. You know what I mean? And his brother infamously went off, was like, F that, F this stupid war. And I actually got to meet one of the Richard Tillman I did a Tough Mudder with Josie and a bunch of our friends. We went to, what's the name of that? Lake Tahoe. Went to Lake Tahoe and did a Tough Mudder. First and foremost, it was a total nightmare. We were not physically ready. I think this is before I was CrossFitting, so I was completely not ready. I think it was 8 hours. We humped up the top of this freaking mountain, exhausted, and then we see little ants like figures walking across another mountain. We're like, oh, there's other people on that mountain doing something too. And they were like, well, that's going to be you in about 3 hours when you walk over there. I was like, oh my God. So anyway, we come down, we get done. 8 hours of tough muttering, which is a Wounded Warrior Project thing, which since then is, I don't know if it's imploded, but I think they were doing some shady stuff with the money, which sucks. But I saw Richard Tillman, and I happened to have seen, I think they were on Bill Maher, Real Time with Bill Maher. I don't remember, but I was very familiar with their story. I'd read Pat Tillman's book, and I recognized him just walking around with, I think he was walking around with I don't know, his mom, or I don't remember. And I say to Josie, and we're ridiculously exhausted. We're covered in the shock aluminum blankets. And I said, hey, Josie, hey, there's frickin' Tillman right there. The Tillman was right there. She said, what are you saying? I'm like, I can't even form the sentence because I was so excited to see these guys, right? Because that story is inspirational to me, and because I was in the military, right? In case you didn't know that. The brainwashing is still in there nice and deep. So every now and then I get real patriotic, right? Every now and then I get real crazy. And I ran up to him. I was like, hey, whatever. Like, they gave me a big hug. It was awesome. Anyways, so shout out to the Tillmans. Those are some real heroes. Why are we talking? Oh, yeah, because there was a bridge, and it's named after Pat Tillman, appropriately so. Let's see what else we got. Okay. Time device. This is the last one. I skipped over one because it doesn't really apply. There's a time device, and a few sources actually posted about, this is probably the most interesting one. Save the best for last, as we do, okay? And a few sources that I'd found posted about an article written in 1988 where apparently they installed a time device into the dam. And I'm not talking about a watch or a clock, all right? And if you refer to New Scientist magazine, October 22nd, 1988, there's an article called Hoover Dam Holds Key to the Fate of the Universe. Now, I was able to find this on Google Books. And it says a tunnel in the dam will house an experiment to observe a rare subatomic event called double beta decay. Double beta decay. And ain't no betas in this studio right here. I'll tell you that right now. This is alpha territory only, but in the Hoover Dam, there's a tunnel, and they're looking for double beta decay. It says the University of California at Irvine did a 1-year experiment to understand matter and possibly predict the fate of the universe. This is what the science nerds are doing. Can you believe it? Back in the 80s, we had no idea this was going on. The equipment they installed was called a time projection chamber. The experiment was to observe this double beta decay and observe behavior of neutrinos. They wanted to see if neutrinos provided missing mass to the universe, because there were some questions about the Big Bang. It's possible, this is what the article is saying, okay? It's possible that if these neutrinos do, whatever, and it goes through a bunch of scientific stuff, I'm like, you're beyond me. You could be lying to me. You could be making a joke. I have no idea. It's basically saying they're observing these neutrinos because if they could do whatever, it could prove that the universe will someday stop expanding and start falling back in on itself, effectively the end of the world. Now the answer is, what did they find? I don't know. I wish I could tell. I mean, I took all I had to find that article, and what was the result? Do they know there's an end of time coming? Is that why, in conclusion, let's get conspiratorial. In conclusion, do they know from the jump were they thinking, let's build this Hoover Dam so that we can do a little nerd research project on the end of the world? Because, they're always obsessed with the end of the world. And maybe they already know the answer. And maybe the universe is going to start contracting soon. Or it already has, maybe. I had SMQ on here years ago talking about how we died in 2012 and Mandela effect and all that stuff. Maybe it already started. Of course, that would require the whole scientific community to be quiet about it and being on the manipulations. I don't know. Maybe not. So it's a double in conclusion here. I've got good news and I got bad news. I like to give you the bad news first. The bad news is we're all going to die. Here's the good news. The good news is you already knew that. You already knew that. Come on, we're going to die. So what? The universe is caving in itself? Whatever. Cool. At least let me know so I can stop going to work. Right? But you're supposed to be living like that anyway. I mean, I'm not saying don't do your work. As America, we work. We work hard to get ourselves in debt. But there's a phrase about how the last time you make love, you don't know that's the last time you're going to make love. And that's the way you should kind of live your life. Right? We're all going to die. We're all going to die. We don't know when. So you got to take advantage of the good things while you can. And what do you do with all this info? Oh, the occultists are building dams and talking to aliens and looking for the end of the world, and the universe is contracting, and they want man to become God, and they're doing all this crazy stuff, and scientific labs and Tower of Babels. What do you do with all that info? Most people, conspiracy theorists generally, and truthers, use it to spread fear. And unbeknownst to them, I would argue, hopefully, maybe, they don't realize they're promoting an agenda. Because with fear comes control and power. A lot of people can't handle hearing this stuff. They get scared listening to conspiracy theory, and they say, oh my God, these people are out of control. What are we going to do? And I always say, I don't know. Don't do anything. Go live your life. Don't go storming the Capitol. You're just giving them what they want. And that's the case in point, right? You start breaking the laws and being chaotic and uncivilized, then now you're giving the fascists the basis to which to control you. You start acting out, and they're going to say, well, see, we need to be watching people's social media, and we need to be Patriot Act listening to them on their phones because they're all rotten people. You're falling into the trap when you start spreading the fear and the hate. That's my beef with a lot of the conspiracy news, reactionary type, services. Nothing against those people, it's not what I want for you. That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's not what I want for you because it's not what I want for me. I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to it. Just saying, like, all this fear and hate and divisiveness, getting mad at everyone, mad at this political party and that political party, and we got to take them out and take this. It makes all of us live in hell. Is that what you want? You want to create hell? Because not everybody's on the same page. This is the same reason why I don't support cancel culture. Okay, some guy wants to be racist. That sucks. I mean, that's a bad example. Some guy said an off-color comment about fill in the blank. Maybe that person on their journey hasn't evolved to that part yet. Surprise, surprise, not everybody on the planet has evolved to be caring and trying to show love to their brothers and sisters and all this, right? And that's what I'm saying is that when you give in to all this fear and hatred and trolling and mean-spiritedness, all of us live in hell, especially you, right? Out of all people, you're the one. And I know this. There's people in my life that get balls deep on these generally political. It always comes back to some political nonsense where they're just mad as hell and they want to storm the Capitol. I always use that as a metaphor because you know what I'm saying. But And I get it, right? Like, you want to fight for your cause. Like, I understand that. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying if it's tipping the scales to the point where you are constantly angry and not seeing the positivity of living in this world, what are you going to do? What if you were going to die next week? You want to spend your last week arguing with people on Facebook about what they should do with their health or who the president should be? Is that what you want? Like, you don't want that. Spend it with your family, someone you love. You know what I mean? Try to be positive. And not to mention, no one likes being told what to think or do. No one's going to listen to you. Maybe 1%. Maybe. It requires someone with an open mind and an open heart. And that's most people are not that. So you're just making everybody hate you. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're making your own life hell. Arguing with stuff. You got to take the precious time God gave us. Like, when you zoom out, what's the purpose of this human experience? If you believe in a spirit and a soul, right? The purpose is to spend time in this body experiencing the beauty of the earth and love, right? That's the whole point of this whole thing, is to experience love. So do that, right? Experience love, spread love. I'm not saying never fight, never get mad. I'm not saying that. I mean, you hear me, I'm a effing raving lunatic on here sometimes. I'm saying don't let it color your whole day and your whole life, because a lot of people go down that black pill path, right? And that's the sign off for today. Don't go black pill. Don't go black pill. All right, everybody, you know what to do. You know what to do, and you know where to go to do it. I'm not gonna say it again. You go ad free. You get all the bonus shows, and you support your boy. Links are always in the show notes. Till next time, stay woke.